Hello, I'm going to walk you through step by step to build out your palette with as many colors as you'd like. We're going to start with the primary colors, and they are Hansa Yellow Light for our yellow, and this is a stick from Daniel Smith. And then we have Phthalo Blue Green shade for our blue, and Quinacridone Rose for our magenta. And these are the three modern cool primaries that I like to use. You see here that I have the tube, which is nice to use because it does have more distilled water, so you don't need to add as much water when you're painting. But if you like your paint to go a long way and be easy to transport, I recommend using a stick, which is less distilled water, and so it is pigment and binder in this nice stick. So what I do is I cut it down and I add it to my palette. We will start by adding the pure primaries on one end and then add less and less as we move down. We'll then shift to another row and add our primaries on the other end, and then decrease the amount as we move down again. So you notice here, I've already created my palette on one side. And so I wiped down the other side so I can show you how I built this. And so I'm going to start again, essentially with the same formula. And you will want to set up three glasses of water with 3 brushes, so you do not have to rinse in between. If you have one brush, you will just clean it in between each row. So I'm going to show you how I add a tab to my palette, and this is the Phthalo Blue Green shade right here. And I just wet it on one side, and then I place it here at the end. And so that is 100% blue. That is 100% Cyan Blue, which is our primary blue. Next, we're going to add a tab of the yellow. I'll start with the tabs. So I cut down the stick and I have this yellow. So I'm going to wet it and add it to the end here. I'll just have a lot more paint to work with after this. So this is a great exercise for me. Next, the Quinacridone Rose does not come in a stick. So I do need to use the tube. So I will add more here at the end, and that's a good amount. So I'm going to start with the Quinacridone Rose and show you how I build this out. This area right here at the end is essentially 100% of your pure primaries, just the primary itself. The next row or the next step is going to be less. So if you want to think in percentages, I want 100% of my primary colors here, and then 80% on the next, in the next slot. And then from there, you can go with just eyeballing it and putting down less of a dot. So this would be 80%, the next might be 60, and then we're talking 40, 20, 10, and then less and less. You can go as far as you'd like. I'm going to go that far. And after the after using the tube, we're going to move to using a brush because we have these sticks here. So that means for my Phthalo Blue Green shade, I'm going to add water, and you're going to need to really move your brush around to wet it because it has less water in the stick. It is a concentrate, so you really do need to shift it around to get some of that pigment to move off of the stick. So you'll really get that working around, and you can always add more later to your areas. I might just fill this up with a little bit more water, and then you'll move on to the next space and just put what looks like 80%. So Phthalo Blue is a very staining color, and you want to be mindful of that. So do put less than what you see here with the magenta. Put a little bit less. Otherwise, each step will be very subtle. You won't notice much of a difference between the colors that you create. So I'm just going to put my 80% here. So that's just mixing it in there at the end. And then think about what would essentially be your 60%, your 40, your 20, and 10, and then very little for the spot here. So I'm going to just get the paint off of my brush so I don't waste it. I do this technique, just rubbing it on the edge to let it flow back into that area. I might put a little here too, and then put my brush back into the water. And I'm going to move over to the yellow. I'm doing the same thing, but I'll need more of it because yellow is very translucent, not staining at all. And so you need more of it. You need more yellow if you're going to be making colors like yellow green or green. If you're working with magenta and making an orange, you're going to need a lot of yellow. So I'm really going to move this around, and then I'm bringing it into this next slot. So I might take some more water just to really fill this up, and I'm going to move it in here. If we were working with paint from the tube, then it'd be a little bit more straightforward, but I do like working with these sticks because they are economical and they are not wasteful at all. You end up having a lot of pigment for a lower price, and then you can make sure that it doesn't dry up. It's easy to get it off of the stick, as opposed to sometimes with these tubes, the top will be hard to get on after you've used it a lot. You need to clean the top to make sure you can put the lid on, so on and so forth. So back to the yellow. I'm going to continue to add water to it so I can lift it easily. So more and more water, and just use a lot. So then we're going to go this. So I added the 80%. I'm going to go to 60, which will still be a lot. So this is brushwork here. And sometimes it'll be hard to see until you get your pigments mixed, but I'm just guessing. This one's 60, and then we'll go with 40. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that green there, so I'll rinse it. And then I'm going to add more to this one, maybe. Just, you can go back and forth if you'd like, but just guess ideas around less and less. So I have all three built out from here to here. And what I need to do is the opposite. So now I'm going to be putting 100% cyan blue here, and then slowly decreasing. And then I'll be putting 100% yellow here or here, and then slowly decreasing, and then putting my cyan blue here, and then slowly decreasing. So I'm going to repeat those steps by first working with the cyan blue, and I'm going to put some water on the tab, and I'm going to add it here. So I have 100% on one side. And then I'm going to do the magenta, which moves over to the blue area. And so we need 100% magenta here. So I'm going to do that, the same amount. And then yellow is going to be I'm going to use the tube on this one. You can use a stick, but I think using the tube is a good way to go if you have it, just for this purpose. So it is, we already have 100% there. So I'm going to start with that one. Just going to add a little bit more yellow, and then I'm going to do 80% yellow. I've got a tube here, so you can see how it's kind of hard once you get at the end of the tube to get the paint out. Another benefit of the stick. So, and then 60%, really just like to use all of this. And then 40, 20, that kind of thing. And then maybe a dot here and a small dot here. So I put it inward, and we'll be mixing these all together. So that's the yellow. Now I'm going to take my brush and do the magenta, and then I'll do the cyan blue. So I've got my magenta brush. I'm just going to check it to make sure it is clean. It doesn't have any other color on it. So then it's good to check your brush in case you put your brush in the wrong water, which can happen. It's good to just check it on the paper. So then once you know it's clean of all pigment, you can then grab it and move your magenta. I'm going to start with, I have 100%. I'm going to do 80. I'm going to do 60, 40. I'm going to do 20, 10, maybe 5 there. And then let's move on to the cyan blue, which is going to be using the brush. So it's just working it to get some off. You don't need much because a little goes a long way. And so the trick here, since you have working with the stick and another stick, is to just you'll have this whole part to work, but just get some next to it. Just place it next to it. You can always add more later if you don't have enough, but let's do it this way. Slowly just use the edges, the edge of these sections, just place it in there. It looks like it's barely any blue, but like I said, the blue goes a long way. So just move it along like so, less and less, and then you want very little as you get closer to the pure yellow, maybe just a dot of it here. So that will work. And I'm just going to jump into mixing. So now you mix these, and it's a good idea to have some paper nearby so that you can test your mixing. So I'll start with the blue. It can oftentimes be the most challenging because blue is so strong and really will stain. And this might actually end up looking just like blue. So I'm going to mix this together. And what we're going for here is a really dark blue-green. And so I'm just going to make a test mark next to it. Maybe bring this in. You can use this part of the palette, of course. Just see if I notice looking at the color. I think that's fine. That's a good starting point. And then the next one is going to be a blue-green, but shifting more towards the yellow. So let's see if we've got that. Let's bring that in. I may need more yellow here. And if you do, then shift to your brush that's dedicated towards to yellow. And then either take from the yellow here and move it in, or however you'd like, but it's best to work from here. So then I'm just going to put some yellow in here, and there really isn't any clean spots, so I'm just going to have to clean my yellow brush afterwards. So I'm just going to do this and bring it in like so. And I'll probably have to do that again, so I'm going to leave that be. So then we mix it around, and we're going for a blue-green. So let's check that. And notice that these two are different. So that one is different. That's ideal. So now I'm going to want something that in the next one that is closer to a green. And right now I can already tell that it's very blue-green, so it needs more yellow. So I'm going to use that yellow brush, check it first by marking, bring in some yellow to that slot. So I'm just going to slide it down like this, cleaning the brush in between application because I don't want to add green to my my yellow area. So this is a good practice to get used to cleaning your brush when you want those pure hues. So I think I've added enough yellow there. Like I said, yellow you need more of, blue you need less of. So this column is probably the most challenging, the yellow to green column. So let's see if these are different enough. I think they are. There's a shift. And then the next one is going to really be, I want it to be a pure green. So I want it to be a true green, less blue. So I'm going to get more yellow in there. So I'm just going to put a lot more cleaning in between, a lot more yellow. I could even take this little dot and add it to it if I wanted to. So there we go. And then we mix it around, and I already see that it is more of a green, more of a balance between blue and yellow. And then I can make a mark next to this one and check it, and it looks more like a green. And then the next will be more of a yellow-green. So I think it's going to probably just need a little bit more yellow in there. I could take this dot and move it. It's kind of not as scientific, but none of this is. It's all just eyeballing it. So I will take this little dot. It's a concentrate, so it needs water, and see if I can get it to break down and create something that is more of a yellow. So if you're working from the paint tubes, you do have the advantage of the pigment separating and blending much quicker. So it's a little bit of a slower process when you are working with a concentrate. Positive, there are pros and cons. So let me see if I have anything that's different. It looks very similar to the green. It doesn't really look like a yellow-green to me. I could take a knife or razor blade and kind of cut into this, but I think because watercolor requires patience, it's a good idea to just work at it slowly and just be curious about the color. And now let's check this to see if it is a shift from the green. So I'm just going to put it next to it. Yeah, it's a bit brighter and yellower, so that's a good shift. So I'm going to rinse off my brush, and just after I get all the pigment off like this, so that I can have a very yellow green on the next one. So I might just try to get all of that off. I might rinse it, I might not. I think I'm just going to leave this pigment on there and then go into this and just shift it around. So you have little crumbles and all that. They'll dry up and they won't move around in this palette. but let's see what this color looks like. This will be my yellow green. So I really like that chartreuse color, that yellow green. And then the next one is your pure yellow. So you leave that alone. I'm going to rinse my brush that was dedicated to one hue, and now it has multi-hues in it. So I really do need to clean it. If you have a clean water glass handy, that's ideal too, because then you can get all the pigment off. And you might want to make a mark just to check that it's clean. So I'm going to put that in my clean water glass, and I'm going to move on to the next column. I'm going to move on to this one. So I want to move towards the yellow. And I'm going to start with 100% magenta. I don't need to mix this at all. I'm just going to go this way so you can see the opposite. Let's see if we have enough yellow in here. We just want a subtle shift. So we're getting closer to red as we add yellow. So let's see how these blend in here. Yours will be a little bit different if you didn't fill out both spots, but you can also make a mark of your pure hue, this color here in this column, if you're not familiar with it. So you do know that it shifted. I know that this is already shifted to more of a, not quite a red, but we're getting there. So I'm going to come over here and make a mark. So I want to get it away from all these little area where it has green. So be mindful of that. So I have a little mark. You make your marks in different sizes. And then I want to rinse off and just add a little bit more water. I think I just want more water for this next one. So this one will have, be closer to a red here. As we get more yellow into our magenta, it gets closer to red. So let's try that. Let's make another little mark underneath this one. Yeah, I think I need more yellow in here because it is still very magenta. So I'm going to use my tube. If you were using the, well, actually, I'll just go ahead and use my stick. That's fine. And so you could use either. You can use both, whichever, but I'm just going to take from this, and this is our pure hue. So we're just going to pull from that and then put some yellow into there. And then I'm going to rinse that off, and then I'm going to put it in my yellow water. So I'm going to mix this and see if it's closer to red. Let's try that and see if it shifted. So subtle shift, but it is more of a red. So the next one we may see more of a jump. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to this so I can mix these around. And I think this one may need more yellow, but it's going to be shifting towards orange. So we should have magenta, almost red, red, and then a red orange in here would be the next step. So I'm going to take my yellow while I have this and bring just a little bit more yellow in here to get closer to a red orange. So you just do that. And this isn't scientific. It's just getting the balance between the two. So let's see it. This looks like a red orange to me. It looks like a blood orange. So just a subtle shift happening. And then the next will be more of a 50-50. So 50%, the dots should be equal size, will make an orange. So if I get my brush clean, so I'm not adding more magenta, and then I see about these two mixing. So this is yellow and magenta, and maybe add a little bit more water so it's not as creamy, but you can have it creamy in the palette. This is more of an orange. So I'm just going to wipe that away and then check it. So over here, I'm checking it. And then we'll go to the next one. I don't need to clean my brush too much because I do like the idea of adding just a little bit of orange as I go. Unless you want to just work with those ratios exactly, then you will clean in between. So I'm going to see what these do. I'm going to add a little bit of water so it's a little less creamy. And then I'm going to blend these and see if I can get a lighter yellow-orange. So is this one lighter? Does it need more yellow? It's a subtle shift. There's nothing wrong with having two colors in two spots. You just have more of it to work with if you know you use it a lot. So you could have two or more. So I'm just going to add some yellow to that. So cleaning my brush, taking it over here, grabbing some yellow, just moving around this tab, and then bringing it in to here. And I'm also introducing more water, which means it's going to blend nicely. So then again, more and more. And then I'm going to see if I can make it more yellow. So it's a subtle, very subtle shift to a lighter yellow, orange. And then this next one, I think that one's fine. I'll make a little mark. Yep. And then I'm going to clean my brush and go to the next one. It hopefully is more yellow than magenta, making it a lighter yellow-orange. So let's get these shifted. That magenta is also staining, but not as much as the cyan blue, meaning a little goes a long way. So you can use less than I did for your mixtures. And equal parts over here is great because they're both staining, but you could use less here with the yellow, a lot less than I did. And then you don't need to keep adding yellow like I am. So I'm going to add more yellow. And so hopefully you are enjoying the process of making this palette. I find watching the colors blend is enjoyable, so I don't mind taking the time to do this. So here we go. Or yellow. How yellow do you want to go? Just decide if you really need that super light yellow, which I think is useful. There are many times I need that for flowers or vegetables as well, fruit. So I'm just going to mix that. You can already see how it's blending. Is that light enough for you? Do you want more yellow? It could be a good start for when you're matching or color matching. You just have this lightest yellow orange to work with. So yeah, I like that one. And then I'll leave this 100% yellow. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush. And I'm going to be moving to the, you can work with a brush that's clean. Make sure it just doesn't have any yellow in it whatsoever because we're working with blue and magenta. So we're working from blue towards violet and then back to magenta. So I have a brush that has a little bit of blue in it, but doesn't have yellow in it. And if I was concerned, I could go and clean it. Sometimes drying your brush, wiping it dry, and then rinsing it in water will get pigment out. But the blue is what's going to stay in the fibers longer. It's harder to get out. So that's the one you need to check to make sure if you're going from a blue to another pure hue, you just need to make sure the blue is out. So I have the yellow out of that. So I'm going to start on this end and I'm going to move towards, so I'm starting with 100% magenta and less and less and less and less to the end, which is the cyan blue. Cyan blue has 100% here, less and less and less towards magenta. So here's my 100%. I'm going to add some water so these two will blend nicely. And this will just be a subtle shift away from magenta. It's a subtle shift towards the violet and the blues. So you just, I can already see that this is bluer magenta. So I might see if I can make, I know it might be challenging to see, but I'll just put them in between here. So this one is the cyan plus magenta, and I just put it here. It's just a little bit of a check to see. The next one, I really want it to get bluer, which is not going to be a challenge because the blue is so staining. This little bit of blue here mixed in with all this magenta is really going to get it towards violet. It's really going to get it towards purple. So we just mix all that in, and you can add more water if you want. I'm just going to add water so that it's easier for me to do my mark making. So over here, I'm going to add another mark just to make sure it shifted, and it did. So, and it doesn't have to do with the amount of water in it. It has to do with the pigment shifting. If you were concerned that it might be too close to the one next to it, then you can take a brush that had been used for blue. The more brushes, the better that you're using, and the more glasses of water, the better when you're mixing these. So I am going to see if I can find my magenta brush. And yellow comes out easily. So if you found that your brushes have become very yellow, you can really just get that out easily. It's going to come right out of your bristles. It's not going to want to stick around. It doesn't grab onto the fibers. So I'm just cleaning a brush so I can grab a little bit more of the blue for that without putting any yellow into it. Adding that third primary makes the color neutral. It'll neutralize it, meaning it'll get closer to a brown. So I'm going to grab, now that my brush is clean, I'm going to grab a little bit of the cyan blue here. And I'm going to add more of it here. And I might as well add more here and, you know, here and so on and so forth. If I'm noticing that there's not enough of it, it's probably going to be true all the way along. So yeah, I added more here. I'm going to mix it up, see if we're getting closer towards a violet or a purple and farther away from that step here. So yep, that's very purple. We made a big jump. So if you wanted to add more cyan in here, you certainly could to shift it closer towards that color. But let's see if we are, how we're doing here. What we want as we get towards here is to get a nice blue. We want a nice blue, we want a nice purpley violet, and then we want a red violet. So this is our red violet. This is more of our purple. So we'll be moving between purple and blue now. So let's see, this may still be very purple. I think it will be because of the amount of blue in that section, but we just want a range to work with so we have lots of colors when we are color matching. Because as you know, even if you were to buy tubes of each of these colors, they would never match what you're looking at, whether it be an object or a photograph exactly. You will always need to shift them. But by doing this and a color wheel, you'll understand how to adjust them. You'll understand what to do to that color to make it match as close as you'd like it to. So this is getting closer to blue. I can see that. And I'm happy with this. And then I'm going to go to the next one and mix it and see how that goes. And sometimes what happens is you go towards the blue and then you start going back to magenta, which I think happened here, but then you can just add more blue in. So you can, it's a nice way of understanding your color just by doing this. Yeah, I shifted back to that because there's less blue here than there is there. So all I need to do is grab some blue here and then put it into this slot. Just, you can't really, I mean, it's hard to see. And don't worry about contaminating, getting a color like magenta into here. When this dries, you can wipe away any perceived color on the outside. It's not going to go into it. It's going to sit on top of it. So let me see if I've gone back towards a blue here, which looks like I have. Yeah, I think it's even bluer. And so I'm happy with that. And I want to make sure I just have enough cyan blue in my other two areas. So I'm just going to get some of this and shift it here. And I promise you, when you're doing this, it's going to be calm and relaxing and enjoyable. You can do whatever you want over here. You can make a pattern. You could be working on a painting, whatever you want to do for your color exploration, just to help you understand it. For me, I'm just creating a simple color marks, so I understand it. Okay, I think I have enough blue, so it'll be more blue than magenta. So then I'll do this one. And then I will definitely need to mark it just to see. I'm going to get a lot of water in here. I think it may be closer in here. I can already see that it's probably, let's see, I'll get some more water in there so I can really see the color. Yeah, it's a really beautiful blue, and that's where we want to be. We want to be in the blue. Think of indigo blue. So I'm going to move on to this next one. Think of that really beautiful indigo blue here. And then here you can be closer to a cyan blue, which is kind of a blue-green shade. So it doesn't have green in it. It's just closer to what you would think of in terms of like cyan, meaning like a turquoise. It's more of a cool blue. So you have this range happening here. You have this range happening here. And then you have this range happening here. So you have quite a few colors to work with. You have yellow, yellow-green, greens, blue-greens, and more blue, then green, all the way to your cyan blue. Then you have pure yellow, yellow oranges, red-orange, red to magenta. And then you have your blue, cyan blue, which is that blue-green I mentioned, to blue. And then you have your violets towards your red violet all the way to magenta. So you now have a lot more colors to work with. It is much easier to do color matching because you don't need to be making these colors as you go. You can certainly fill these up, meaning add more of your pigment to each one so that you have more of each. And so you have more to work with. But I think that this simplifies the process. You can jump right into painting and really enjoy your palette. So I'd love it if you gave this a try and let me know in the comments, or if you're in one of my classes, please share with me what your experience is. And I hope that you enjoy working with color.